What else do you need?
Ma'am, shelter.
Shelter, very good. Then that's it. So if they give you food, water, shelter, and clothes, very, very good. Then okay, now let's just take the topic clothes. So where do we get this clothes from?
Ma'am, sheep.
We get it basically from, okay, let's just say animal. We get it only from animal?
No, ma'am. Plants.
We also get it from plants. Very good. So these materials from which we get our clothes. You can see that your cloth, for example, you're getting it from the plant. Do you get your dress directly like this from the plant?
No, ma'am.
What do you get it as? You get it as what? How does it become like this? How does it become a dress?
Stitching.
How does it become a teacher? Stitching. Okay. Stitching what?
Cloth.
So you're getting the cloth from the plant directly like this.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So from the plants will give you directly a cloth like this. Is it? How many of you agree? So you're growing a plant, the plant will give you a cloth like this. From that cloth, I can stitch my t-shirt. Is it?
No,
Yes.
ma'am.
Then what does it give first? Think. What happened to all of y'all? Basic sense, what? Okay, now you told sheep. What does a sheep give you?
Wool.
Wool. Doesn't give you a cloth. What does plants give you? Cotton, no. Cotton buds. Now from the cottons will all be like puffy, like this they will be. Doesn't give you a cloth. Wool will also be something like this. It is not a cloth. From this, each strings or each strands are taken. They are stitched. Similarly, each strings, strands or everything are taken. They are stitched and you get your product. Get it? So this string or thread that you make from the cotton or the wool is called as fiber. And the fiber is converted or stitched into fabric. From where your lesson comes, fiber to fabric. Am I clear? Now you know what the difference between fiber and fabric is. So fiber is like the basic material and fabric is like the end product. Okay, so you have a variety. So without fabric, obviously you cannot survive itself. From your pant to t-shirt to uniforms to curtains to mat, your mat in your house, your blanket covers, the blanket that you use to close, your pillow covers, everything is a cloth, right? So there are a lot, there's a lot of variety. Now you can see this is the fiber. which is being used to give you the fabric. Now, when you're going to buy in a shop, they will give you different types of cloths. One will be cotton material, one will be polyester material, one will be synthetic, one will be silk. So there is a different type of fabric. So fabrics are of different types. So I want you all to find me in just 5 types of fabrics. All right. So there are different types of fabrics that is being there. Okay. So I want you all to give me types of fabrics that is not mentioned in class. Okay. I don't want to give the same thing in the homework also. Okay. So now, what do we say? There's an activity that is being given in your book, which is select a piece of cotton fabric. And now you try to find a loose thread. So you take a cotton cloth, you can see a thread that is coming out of the cloth. Okay. So this loose thread is actually called as a this is the cotton. Okay. This loose thread is called as yarn. Okay, yarn. All right. So this yarn, it's at one of the edges. You're going to pull it, and when you pull out, what you will get? You will get many yarns. You'll get a lot of threads like this. All right. So when you arrange all these yarns together, again, it becomes a fabric. Okay. So basically, yarns, a yarn plus yarn plus yarn plus all yarns together will give you a fabric. So fabric can be made only by multiplying a large number of the basic materials. That is your fiber. You cannot just take a single fiber and make it a cloth. You need multiple fibers or multiple yarns in order to make your fabric. All right. So now, okay. So have you ever like in your mom's shawl or anything, have you ever taken a thread out of it? Guys, have you? It's time for me to break my fast also. Okay. You just copy this down and find the first question that I've given you all. These two questions, I want you all to find the answer. Use the internet or anything and find the answer and keep. I'll just break my fast and I'll be as soon as possible. Okay. Okay, class. Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Okay. I know this lesson is pretty boring, guys. Last lesson was very interesting. This lesson is very dry. It's very boring, I know, but let's bear with it. We'll finish it off soon, okay? So try to find the answers for these two questions. I'll be back soon. Yes, you had got to see your mom's strands. Yeah, okay. So when you took those strands, you could have noticed that your strands, if you just try to, use your nail or use your thumb at any end of the strand, it divides into smaller and smaller threads. Okay. These smaller and smaller threads are only called as fibers. So you can see from minute fibers, a big wool is being formed, and from big wools, a big cloth is being formed. Okay, we'll see, look at the process. Until that, you just find the answers. class. It took a while. Did you guys find the answers?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what do you guys find? What did you guys find first? Deepika, can you tell me? Deepika's there in class, right? Is Deepika there?
Ma'am, I think they both have mic problems, ma'am.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay, fine. Can you try now, Deepika? What about now? Are you able to unmute now? Okay, all right. Fine. Do you guys have access to WhatsApp right now? Deepika? Okay. So you can just text me in WhatsApp the answers, whatever question you're asking. All right. What about you, Advika? Do you have access to WhatsApp right now? Advika, do you have access to WhatsApp right now? Okay, no response. Anyways, going to the first question. I hope I am audible to all of you. Okay, so I asked you all, give me any 5 types of fabrics. So starting with Ashwath, can you tell me?
Silk, wool, cotton.
Okay, stop. Silk, wool, cotton. Okay, very good, Ashwath. Now, Advika, maybe you can drop in the chat box your answers. Deepika, you can also text your answers. Soumya, tell me your answer.
Ma'am, cotton, wool, and silk.
That's it.
Yes, ma'am, those are the only things.
There are so many others. I told you to use the internet and all. No, I told exactly the same whatever he said. I want new answers. What about Deepika and what about Advika? Your mics are not working. I hope you guys can text me. Waiting for all of your answers.
Ma'am, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Ma'am, cotton, wool, and
Okay.
cotton and wool are known as natural fibers.
Okay. Why are they called as natural fibers?
Ma'am, because they are obtained from plants.
Okay, very good. Do you have any other types of fibers other than cotton and wool? Do you know any other fibers than cotton and wool? Okay, so there is so many other things also, like rayon, polyester. Okay, you have chiffon material, then you have jeans material. No, that's denim material. Then you have from the like you have crepe material, silk, linen, wool. You have muslin cloth and all. Okay, so there you have Georgette silk and all, you know, Georgette cloth. So there is different fabrics that is available. All right. Can any of y'all just raise your hand if you know the answer? No, can you? Yeah, synthetic also. Can you all tell me how is this fiber obtained? How do we get this fiber? Since I asked you to search for it, how many of you did? Raise your hand.
Ma'am, can you repeat?
How is fiber obtained? How many of you searched for the answer and got
Ma'am,
the answer?
there's something known as cellulose, right?
Okay, what is the cellulose?
Ma'am, it is found in plants when cotton, I mean, I don't know. I just heard about cellulose.
Okay, I actually asked you all to search for it. Yeah, Atvika, since you have raised your hand, it would be useful if you type your answer. Okay, so let me. Okay, have you guys heard how silk is made or silk is obtained from animals? Have you heard of that, or have you ever heard of
Ma'am, ma'am, silkworm.
silkworm? Very good. So what the silkworm does, from silkworm only we get silk. Okay, so we're going to see a video now. This class is completely introductory class of this lesson. Okay, so now we're going to see a video of how this silk is being made by the silkworm. It will be a little long video, but they will show you in clear about how you obtain it.
Culture. Now, from this point, the girl.
I hope the screen is visible to all of you.
So, I'm going to talk about an exquisite one next. It's called silk. It's what makes your mom's pattu saris from Kanjivaram and your dad's Chinese silk tie. So, you would have heard about this phrase, right? It's as smooth as silk. Is a very expensive, smooth fabric and also a really strong one. Because why do I call it strong? Because the silk rope is actually stronger than an equally thick metal wire. But silk, it comes at a cost of a life. The life of a silkworm. It's made a bit cruelly. So there's this whole industry surviving because of silk. The cultivation is called sericulture. Now the tiny eggs of the silkworm.
Okay, so maybe while looking at the video itself, you guys can also take running notes, like notes of whatever she's saying. Like she said, sericulture is the name of the process of getting silk from the silkworm. So I'm going back again, note it down. I'll be asking, I'm not just simply showing you the video, I'll be asking little questions from this, okay? So listen carefully also. The screen is visible to all of you?
Yes.
The life of a silkworm. It's made a bit cruelly. So there's this whole industry surviving because of silk. The cultivation is called sericulture. Now the tiny eggs of the silkworm moth are incubated till they hatch into something called larva. At this point, the larva is about a quarter of an inch long. Remember the size, it's really important, just a quarter of an inch. Now once they are hatched, the larva is placed under a fine gauze layer and fed huge amount of chopped mulberry leaves, during which time they actually shed their skin 4 times. The larvae which feed on mulberry leaves produce the finest of the finest silk. The larva will eat 50,000 times its initial weight in plant material. So for about 6 weeks, the silkworm eats continuously and grows to a maximum size of 3 inches at 6 weeks. Then it stops eating, changes color, and is about 10,000 times heavier than when it's hatched. The silkworm is now ready to spin a silk cocoon. A single silkworm pupa can produce up to 15 meters of fiber per minute. So the silkworm attaches itself to a compartmented frame, a twig, a tree, a shrub in a rearing house to spin a silk cocoon over a 3 to 8 day period. This period is called pupating, and steadily over the next 4 days, silkworm will rotate its body in a figure 8 movement 300,000 times, constructing a cocoon and producing about a kilometer of silk filament. So now we need to reel out this filament, and this is when we get to the cruel part. The cocoon is treated with hot air, steam, or boiling water. The silk is then unbound from the cocoon by delicately and carefully unwinding or reeling these filaments from 4 to 8 cocoons at one time, sometimes with a slight twist to create a single strand. So this is how it's actually done. Now the amount of usable silk in each cocoon, if you ask me, it's really small, because it takes 10 kgs of cocoon to obtain 1 kg of silk. Oh, and a silk dress requires about 70 kgs of mulberry tree leaves. So lot of raw material going into that silk dress. So the Chinese were the first to discover the use of silk. It was a closely guarded secret by them for over 1,000 years. In fact, the earliest evidence of silk was found at the sites of the Yangshao culture in Xia County, Shanxi, where a silk cocoon was found cut up in half by a sharp knife dating back 4,000 to 3,000 BCE. This species was identified as the Bombyx mori. Now from the Chinese, the secret spread to the Koreans, the Japanese, and the Indians. And that's how mom's pattu sari came into existence. So the whole discovery of silk has some interesting fairy tale stories. So let's just get into one of them. A long time ago, in the 27th century BCE, a silkworm's cocoon fell into the teacup of the Empress Lizu. She wanted to remove it from her drink. How did she do that? The 14-year-old Empress began to unroll the thread of the silk cocoon. She then had an idea. Hey, let's weave it. And voila, she had beautiful dresses made. And having observed the life of the silkworm on the recommendation of her husband, the Yellow Emperor, she began to instruct, her entourage in the art of raising silkworms, what we now, call sericulture. Now, from this point, the girl became the goddess of silk in Chinese mythology. Silk eventually left China on the heir of a princess who was promised to a prince, the Prince of Khotan. This happened in the early 1st century, AD. The princess, she actually refused to go without the fabric that she loved so much, and she would be the very first one who would finally break the ban on silkworm exportation, which was there for centuries in China. Now, the sensitive ones among you are really feeling bad for the silkworms, maybe wondering, is there an alternative to this? Scientists those days wondered too. But their inventions has actually nothing to do with people feeling bad for silkworms. It has more to do with 2 things. 1, the skyrocketing high prices of silk, and 2, a disease which hit the silkworms in the 1860s. French silk industry was being threatened by a disease affecting the silkworm, as I mentioned, in the 1860s. Louis Pasteur and Count Hilaire de Chardonnay. So these 2 people were studying this problem with the hope of saving this vital and high money-making industry. And during this crisis, Chardonnay became interested in finding a way to produce what we now call and know as artificial silk rayon.
Was it clear, guys, or was it too much of history and boring?
Ma'am,
Tell me. Tell me, Ram.
Ma'am, it was a little history.
Yeah, I know. For me also, it was a bit boring. Too much she was talking, no?
You must have seen that mom wears beautiful, soft
Maybe
and
this will be a little interesting. We'll see this or we'll stop again if she talks history, okay?
shiny
Okay.
saris on special occasions. The texture, beauty, and the luster of the fabric grabs a lot of attention and appreciation. But what is this fabric exactly? It's nothing but silk. Yes, we have come across this term several times. Let us now understand what silk is and how the fibers are obtained. To start with, can you tell me the source of silk fibers? Is it a plant? Get threads from such tiny
It's the
creatures?
same thing again. It's not dot. We'll look for real images. Yeah, maybe this will help.
Go out and dine at the finest restaurants and save up to 40% on your bills. Only with Swiggy Dine Out.
Pour, rub, pour. Surf Excel Matic Liquid.
Have been discovered or invented to Commercial
the
silk is
cocoons.
obtained by cultivating different species of silkworm. The most widely and commercially used species is Bombyx mori, native to Asia. Silkworms are soft-bodied, slow-moving and relatively fast-growing insects. Like other insects, silkworms too go through 4 stages of development: egg, larva, pupa and adult. The larva is a caterpillar. The pupa is what the silkworm changes into after spinning its cocoon before emerging as a moth. Since the silkworm grows so drastically, it
So you can see, as she told in the last video, they feed it on what leaves? What leaves do the silkworms feed on?
Mulberry.
Mulberry leaves. You can see the full trays of so many silkworms with kgs and kgs of mulberry leaves.
must shed its skin 4 times during its growth. These stages within a stage are called instars. The eggs normally hatch during summers, which coincide with the mulberry tree regaining its leaves after shedding them in winter. Eggs hatch within 25 days depending on
So these white spots that you see are actually tiny eggs, okay? So they have like kept it into small compartments like in the paper. On the paper only it's like laying its eggs. So let's see how they are like cultivating it.
the weather, with warmer weather hastening the hatching process.
You know that like in a hen, the mother has to sit on top of the egg, warm the egg for the egg to hatch, right? So here, since we can't do that, it takes a lot of time. We directly like immersing the egg in warm water.
A silkworm's preferred food is white mulberry leaves, though they may eat leaves of other mulberry species as well. Due to the practices of our ancestors, silkworms have become fully dependent on humans. They eat continuously and therefore need to be fed at least twice a day. New hatched silkworms are tiny and feed on young and tender mulberry leaf shoots. The mature silkworms eat more mature leaves. As the pupae continuously eat, the containers get filled up with their excreta. These therefore need to be cleaned periodically. Furthermore, silkworms are prone to diseases. Farmers must maintain a high standard of hygiene for rearing and handling these precious creatures. In addition to this, the containers should be maintained in such a way as to prevent other insects like ants from invading. After 20 to 33 days of constantly munching away mulberry leaves, the silkworms feel the urge to cocoon. At this stage, the silkworms are a pretty sight. They become translucent and acquire a yellowish hue.
You can see it has a light shade of yellow, so it's become all fat and it has almost become a light shade of yellow. Now it starts building its cocoon. You know how a caterpillar works, right? A caterpillar becomes a pupa, builds a cocoon, becomes a butterfly. So same like that, here you have the silkworm, builds a cocoon, it becomes a moth. Okay, So before it becomes a moth itself, they kill the silkworm, and they take the silkworm, they separate the silkworm from the cocoon, so the silkworm dies. Okay.
Before it begins cocooning, the silkworm excretes a runny fluid to clean out its system. It then oozes a tiny drop of silk for anchoring. Then it goes on to draw one long, continuous filament of silk by swinging its head from side to side. It takes a silkworm around 48 hours to fully complete this process. The result is a perfectly ovate cocoon made of a single continuous
So
strand.
here you can see
It takes
that
a
it's
silkworm
been,
around 48 hours.
they have put a shape, like a bendy shape they have been provided for the silk worms. So what they do is they weave the cocoon and all the cocoons will fall downwards. You can see that. So it will be easy for the humans
Fully
to
complete
cultivate.
this process.
Let's show you it. See
The-
all the white balls. Can you see? All these are cocoons that's been built by the silkworm.
Result is a perfectly ovate cocoon made of a single continuous strand of silk measuring up to 1 kilometer in length.
So finally, the
After
silk
10
is
to
ready.
14 days of developing inside the chrysalis, the silk moth appears from the cocoon. Silk moths cannot fly due to thousands of years of domestication. They need human assistance in finding a mate and lack fear of potential predators. However, almost immediately after emerging from their cocoons, male silk moths leave their containers in search of a female mate. Olfactory hairs on the male's antennae help them detect pheromones released by the females. It is easy to distinguish between the male and
So you can see that the moth is actually growing out. So this happens, yeah, moths do grow out, but at the same time, it's like hundreds of moths are being grown. Hundreds of silkworms also die at the same time.
female silk moths due to the slightly larger abdomen of the females. The males also tend to be more active. The average lifespan of silk moths is a paltry 5 to 10 days, even though males generally live longer than their female counterparts.
So they die in approximately 5 to 10
After
days.
mating, a female moth will lay between 300 to 500
all the
eggs before dying. The male moths, if not too old, continue to search for another mate. Reeling, or the process of drawing silk yarn, should be started before silk moths emerge from their cocoons. Once the moths emerge, the shell is of no use because the adult emerges by piercing the cocoon shell. To prevent this, cocoons are either dried in a dryer or stifled in steam. This action kills the pupae inside, thereby allowing farmers to obtain.
See, can you hear? They're saying that they boil it because they don't let the male normally not to come out. They let only a few number of males, a few number of females to come out just for the laying of egg. Okay, if they got the egg, the other rest, for example, you have like 1,000 of the silk worms being eaten and building of cocoon. They will keep 500 for coming out, and 500 they'll kill it. They'll boil it. What will happen after they boil it? The inside pupa will die, and they'll just take out the body of the pupa and they'll use the silkworm's woven nest. And whereas the ones where they let the moth come out, so when the moth comes out, it's only for laying egg purpose. The cocoon will be of no more use because the male moth or female moth, it comes out only by piercing the cocoon, which makes the cocoon useless.
More cocoons fit for reeling. Before reeling, the cocoons are processed in hot water at 95 to 97 degrees Celsius for 10 to 15 minutes. This cooking makes the unwinding easier without breaking the thread. In India, silk is reeled on country-type charkhas or spinning wheels. The silk thus produced is substandard, uneven, and carries many slubs. Improved cottage-type or large-scale basins for the extraction of superior quality fibre have been introduced in recent years. Once the silk is reeled, weavers and tailors put in their creativity, art and labour to create gorgeous drapes and fabrics to cater to the demands of the market. This sums up the story of how your favourite gown or gorgeous sari came into being.
This video is better, right? Did you guys understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I hope the videos were more, this video was more clear with what actually the images look like and everything. Did you guys have any doubt in this video?
No, ma'am.
Nobody else? What about others?
Ma'am, what is the name of first stage?
What is the name of first stage? It's called the larva, the baby stage. Okay, so there are like almost 4 stages of silkworm. So first stage is the baby stage. That is basically, I'll just write it down. The first stage is actually the egg stage. From the egg only this thing will come, right? So it'll egg and then it hatches and it becomes a larva or a silkworm. And once it's a silkworm, it will build the cocoon and finally it becomes a pupa. These are the 4 stages it goes through in order to become an adult, which is called the moth. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So there's not much to write. This when I'm taking class itself, you guys can make running notes because there's no much for me to write. You can just and also like I'm going to repeat the same thing again and again. So you can just take notes of whatever I'm saying. So I already told you what these fibers are. Okay. So these fabrics, they are made up of all these yarns, as I mentioned. And yarns are again made up into fibers. Look at the difference. Fabrics are made from yarns that are converted into fibers. So yarns are converted into fibers and fibers are converted to fabrics. It goes like that. Okay. So you have fibers in some fabrics, such as you have jute, cotton, silk, wool. All these are obtained from plants and animals. So the ones that you get, or any cloth material that you get from plants and animals, are known as natural fibers. Okay. So cotton and jute is example of the ones that you get from the plants. Whereas wool and silk that you get from the animals. Whereas wool is from the sheep and the silk is from the silkworm. So wool is obtained from the fleece of the sheep or the goat, and it is also, you also use it from the hair of the rabbits also in some regions. Okay. So from camels and all also they sometimes take, okay, the skin of the camel and all that. And then you also have silk fiber that is got from the silkworm that I showed you the video about. So for thousands of years, natural fibers, they were the only ones that was available for making the fabrics. Okay, so earlier and all, there was no any other cloth sources, only these natural fibers were the sources. So in the last 100 years or so only, fibers are made from chemical substances. So which is not obtained from the plant or animal source. Okay, so the substances that is not from plants or animal sources are known as synthetic fibers. What are they called as?
Synthetic fibers.
Synthetic fibers. So the ones that you get from plants and animals are known as natural fibers. The ones that you do not get from animals and plants called as synthetic fibers. So what do these synthetic fibers are obtained from? They're obtained from chemicals. All right. So some examples you have polyester.
Ma'am,
Tell me.
can we see synthetic fiber also as man-made fibers?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, man-made fibers. So synthetic fibers are basically made by using chemicals. Chemicals itself means man-made because we are the one who made our own poison. Okay, so chemicals are made from man. So synthetic fibers are obtained from chemicals. Examples you have polyester, nylon, acrylic cloth, and all that. Okay, and I think, yeah, this was enough for the introductory class. So in next class, it is day after tomorrow. Now I want you to also give me, now this was the homework that you already did. So now explain, note on your homework question.
Ma'am, is polyester also man-made?
Yes, it is also man-made. It is like an artificial source of silk. These two will be your questions. You can note it down. Tell me if you're done.
Ma'am, this 5 and this one give 5 types of fabric fiber.
That you already answered in class. No, that's not required. These two are enough.
Okay, ma'am.
Next class, we're going to see in detail about some of the plant fibers.
Ma'am, done.
Okay, I hope all of you are done.
Ma'am, one.
Yeah.
Over, ma'am.
Are all of you done? Class? I hope all are done. Yes. Yeah, Deepika, Soumya, all of you are done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll meet in next class then. Bye.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye-bye.